Kentucky back on the field, and then Ray Davis, all day Ray. Man, oh man, is Davis doing it up. This is Tootin taking it to his left, got a seam. Facial Tootin on the move, got some alleys out there. Beep, beep, touchdown.
Back shoulder throw, he's got it. It's Tez Johnson. Johnson, call him Johnson, touchdown.
Is their defense. Little hole there to the right side, first down and then some. Jeremiah Love, touchdown Notre Dame. It's Williams in motion, low snap, Melrose stopped. Michigan makes a stand and comes up with a milestone playoff victory.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Week Zero podcast. Looks like Lucas has finally joined us after crashing out hard, and he will be crashing out probably during tonight's stream. Josh is not here, but we got, of course, I'm your host, Top Left Box, aka Connor. We got Ryan, SEC Champs Fravel. We got Maze Madman Phil, and we got, of course, Lucas. How you guys doing? Phil, I'm sure you're very you want the Meteor. He wants the Meteor to win.
Yeah. This is the worst possible outcome for me as a Michigan fan. When I saw the bracket, I said, "Oh, these two teams will never get there," but that would be the worst possible thing, and I was wrong.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet on Twitter that like blew up where it was like, this is what Michigan gets for cheating, as you get Notre Dame and Ohio State the very next year. The worst possible matchup.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's pretty bad. I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, this must have been what it was like for Ryan.
It was
winning the championship as a Notre Dame fan.
I mean, Ryan, what would be like the absolute worst matchup for you? Would it be like Ohio State, Michigan in the Natty or something?
No, USC. No, it would be
USC,
Michigan and USC. Yeah,
Gotcha.
That'd be the worst. And then obviously for Lucas, it'd have to be Oregon State and Washington. That'd be terrible.
He'd be down bad. So, since he wasn't here before because he was ducking us, let's just recap the Oregon game a little bit real quick. Let's get Lucas's thoughts on the game since he ducked us. Lucas, I'm sorry. Just wasn't your guys' night. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback look more confused and flustered than Dylan Gabriel looked in that game.
I disagree heavily. I think it was just a great game plan by Ryan Day. He knew what he had to do, but Ohio State has played on fire this entire time. So it's not like I can be that disappointed. I mean, we're in the same situation that, Texas is in and the fucking other team that they beat, the scrub team. No disrespect. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not like I was pretty upset about it at first because I didn't get to see Oregon play again. But I would rather lose to Ohio State than be like, one of these teams that lost to a team that they, I don't know. I would honestly, I'd rather lose to Ohio State than Notre Dame, to be 100% honest with you, because I think Ohio State's a better team. But and I wouldn't want to hear that from Ryan.
You're seeing something that unfortunately the two times Oregon has ever won like 13 games, both times
we've never
Ohio
won.
State was the one who ended their season because it was 2014 after you guys beat Florida State, and then this year.
Yes, we did. Yes,
yeah.
I guess that's true. I mean, I was more disappointed then because I think I think our team was a lot better in 2014 than Ohio State. This time around, I think everybody came into the season knowing that Ohio State probably had the best roster in college football, maybe even Texas, but we weren't supposed to beat them in the regular season. I mean, we were dogs in both of the games. I think Oregon really overachieved this year. I think they're going to be I genuinely think they're going to be a lot better next year, honestly.
Who's going to be the starting QB? Moore?
It's going to be Dante. Yeah, it'll be Dante Moore. And people are hyping him up to be incredible. I mean, Tez Johnson said he's going to be a Heisman finalist. So, and Tez said that he was the best quarterback that he's ever seen throw a football. So, considering his brother is Bo Nix, I think that's pretty high praise. But I don't know. Looking back on the game, I knew it was over pretty quick when Jeremiah Smith took the first touchdown. I knew it was about over. I stopped watching the game, and so
You stopped watching the game after one drive?
no, I saw it was right before half. I stopped watching the game. But I think it just goes to prove that I really think that a 25+ day layoff for these teams when the team they're going to play against got a game before that, I think that's a mistake by the committee. And it's not just Oregon. It was Georgia. It was, Boise State. Arizona State put up a really good fight, but they did not look good in the first half. So I think it just goes to prove that. And so it makes me a little bit less upset that we lost that game. It is what it is. I'm done with lefty quarterbacks. Let's get them all out of here.
Okay.
All right.
I guess we already gave all our thoughts on the game last week. We just wanted to get Lucas's, obviously.
What I will say, and to touch on last week's game. Oh, we're doing the semifinals reaction too. Okay.
Yeah. No, just keep whatever you had left. Whatever you had to say.
Well, I was going to speak on the Notre Dame Penn State game, and not too in depth, but I would have been really, really upset if Penn State ended up getting to the national championship.
Well, we took care of that, Lucas.
Well, why?
Glad you did. I would have been really upset because all Oregon would have had to do was just tank the Big Ten title game and get the same route, basically, or the same route that Texas got and then didn't have to play Ohio State until the semifinals. I would have been so much happier with that. So if Penn State would have lost that game and then still got to the national championship, I would have been livid.
It's just I think I hope this does is one, because they've already talked about they'll probably change the seeding to where it's just the top 4 teams get buys, like it should have been, right? But I think the other thing is it should be reseeding, just like how the NFL playoffs are, right? Oregon would get the whatever lowest seed, which would that have been? That still would have been Ohio State anyway, though, right?
What?
Yeah,
remaining.
It would have.
Yeah,
it would have.
But like I'm saying, you have reseeding where
But if you actually had a true top 4, Boise State and Arizona State wouldn't have been in that top 4, which would have meant that one of those teams, if they had won, would have, you know what I mean? So it would have been a lot different. I think all they need to do is add 4 teams, make it a 16-team playoff, no bye weeks, and just play it through there. I don't think there should be a bye week. You already get a bye week after
even all the teams anyway are getting 2-week buys from championship weekend.
Right. Ohio State tanked the Michigan game, got 2 straight bye weeks before the Tennessee game, beat the hell out of them, and then played Oregon, who were coming off of 2 weeks
plus another week.
Plus another week, another 3 weeks. So it's like, I mean,
okay, let's do Ohio State first, because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more about the Notre Dame game. So both games ended up being surprisingly tight. Ended up being almost like heavyweight matches. I thought, if anything, this was the game that was going to be a 35-32 final. But what were your guys' thoughts about this game?
I mean, a lot of people had this game as a blowout. I mean, there were people saying you might as well hand Ohio State the national championship trophy. I think Texas showed that this Ohio State team is still beatable. They still have holes in as a team. I think that the reason Texas was able to keep this game close is the physicality of Texas. Again, we've talked about this multiple times. The key to beating a Ryan Day Ohio State team is to make it a physical game, because that they do not want to play a physical game. They want to play a finesse game. In my opinion, watching this game, I thought Texas gave this game to Ohio State more than Ohio State took it. The touchdown before half on the screen to Travion Henderson, 9 times out of 10, that's not happening, right?
It should have, at least.
It shouldn't happen. For whatever reason, you're playing prevent defense with 30 seconds to go in the half, and you're blitzing your corners. Don't make sense, but that's Steve Sarkisian for you. And then you had a big Isaiah Bond drop on 3rd down. You had the whether it's BS or not, the taunting penalty on a Texas for 15 yards, which was crazy. And then you had Quinn Ewers literally fumbling the bag, the definition of fumbling the bag. And Jack Sawyer ended the game with that touchdown. I just think the Texas, to me, not that they were the better team, but I think that if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, Texas probably is playing for a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, to bank off of that a little bit, in their 2 losses they already had against Georgia, they did the same things. Where, for whatever reason, when Quinn Ewers sees a good defensive line in front of him, he just falls apart. Not to say that Michigan doesn't have a good D-line. Obviously they do. But, like, in those 3 games when the D-line was in his face constantly, he completely fell apart. And, that pitch play on the goal line from the 1-yard line made 0 sense. It was the worst play call I think I've ever seen. And literally rewatching those plays, it's like I think Quinn Ewers could have done 4 QB sneaks and could have got into the end zone. If he didn't, they're down at the 1-yard line. It would have been that easy. But instead, Texas shoots themselves in the foot. They definitely fought hard, but I mean, Ohio State's defensive line is a problem. They are a problem. They are playing on fire in these playoffs. The best I've seen them play all season. Jack Sawyer is playing out of his mind, and Quinn Ewers just folded. And I think it would be in his best interest if he stayed in college football for another year because of that.
Yeah.
He's not going to be. He's not going to be like a first round pick.
It wouldn't be.
I don't want him in Oregon.
It's going to be like a second or a third at this rate. With how
if he stayed, it wouldn't be at Texas though. I'll tell you that right now.
We already know that. We already know that.
It'll be at a Big Ten school, but I pray I don't want.
Imagine if it's Ohio State.
I don't want his name attached to Oregon at all.
Okay, I fully admit. I mean, I was able to watch part of this game because I was at work, so I wasn't fully paying attention to it. But it just looks like Texas the offensive line just like couldn't. Yeah, the offensive line just could not stop Ohio State's defensive line
until JT went down.
Yes, and the other issue is that Texas just. I don't want to say gun shy. Like they just felt like they were playing
scared.
Yeah, exactly. They were playing scared. They didn't want to take too many risks because I'm sure they thought, if they make a mistake, Ohio State's going to punish them. And obviously that's what happened with the strip sack at the very end of the game there. I definitely have a lot more thoughts on the Notre Dame Penn State game because I was able to watch a bit more of that game. So I'll give my thoughts on that. But that's really all I had to say about the Ohio State Texas game.
I actually, with Quinn Ewers, I mean, I think Texas as a whole, in terms of stop defensively, they had a great plan with Jeremiah Smith, which when we talk later, that's my biggest worry, obviously, as a Notre Dame fan. But they had a great plan on defense. Quinn made some beautiful throws in that game. I mean, he threw some on-the-money dots. But I agree that, the play call at the end to pitch it at the goal line, that was it once that happened.
Yeah. All right, Phil, what were your thoughts on the game? Oh, you're muted, Phil.
Okay, yeah, I was
Yeah,
completely
there you go.
disgusted with this game. Being shout out to Garrison. Being
I
the
I don't
Michigan
want to. I don't
fan,
want to see him in our chat.
this was absolutely
Get out of here, boy.
the worst possible thing that could have happened. That said, I got to give Ohio State credit for the run that they've been on in these playoffs. They've been pretty dominant. I want to also say that if they win the national championship, that Michigan deserves like 30% of that trophy for lighting the fire under these
You
guys.
deserve a ring. You deserve a
We
ring.
deserve a ring, absolutely.
Hey, what do we get?
Oh,
You get a participation trophy.
Can we at least?
Uh,
Can they at least give us the Rose Bowl trophy
right.
I'll give you the Rose Bowl trophy.
for beating them in the regular season? I think we deserve that.
Go ahead, Phil.
Muted yourself again.
You muted yourself, bro.
Sorry, there we go. The
Yeah,
game
yeah.
did feel like Texas was kind of playing on a tightrope. And if something, if they made a mistake, then Ohio State all over it. That's how it felt for most of the game, and honestly, that's pretty much how it ended with that goal line. Stand there. The second down call was just, I think, Sarkisian panicking more than anything. I don't know why you call that play. You don't go backwards at that point in the game, but yeah. So it was disappointing as a Michigan fan, but also I can appreciate what Ryan Day and Ohio State has done in these playoffs.
They're
I think
beatable.
Yeah.
They look unstoppable and they look elite, but we've seen before that they're beatable this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is it like time to not necessarily put on the hot seat, but start to have some discussions about Sarkisian?
No.
In turn,
I don't think so. Yeah, because
hold on. In terms of just like me and Lucas talked about, the play calling in big games, it's horrendous. Like, it is absolutely horrendous. And you've made it to the semifinals back-to-back years. You lost to a Washington team that had no defense. And you lost to Ohio State. And both games were winnable. And you could argue both games were more on Sarkisian than anybody else that had to do with that was on that Texas teams. Like,
Yeah. He still went 2-1 this year, regardless of them probably having the easiest path in the playoff, arguably. Fun fact, before the semifinals, those were the only games with Texas that were one-score games in the whole playoff in the first two rounds.
Yeah.
So they didn't do it at some point, but they didn't do it well. But, I mean, he won a New Year's Six Bowl. He went 2-1 in the playoffs. That's not enough for you to fire a coach.
I'm not
People
saying
would probably
fire.
rather James would rather James Franklin get fired, and he's probably not going to get fired. I feel like that's more understanding than Sarkisian at this point.
All right, this is Fisherman. The toss wasn't a bad play. It was man defense, but it was versus the wrong team because how good Downs and Ransom
No,
are.
it was a bad play.
It
When
was
you
a
have first and goal at the 1
It was a
yard line,
terrible
you run it
play.
up the gut.
and you do a toss play that tosses the ball 4 yards backwards.
Yeah, that was a bad play.
That was a bad play.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever seen toss plays work is when you're playing Madden on rookie, and you're just like, I'm just gonna toss it and just like run wide and just take.
And on top of that, if you're gonna run a toss play at the goal line, you're gonna do it from an I formation with a fullback in front of you.
Yes,
That's how you run a toss play on the goal line. You don't do it in the pistol with nobody in front. It doesn't make
I've seen it. I've seen it work too in college when they're like lined up for like a tush push, and like the defensive line is pinching in, and then they pitch it to the RB out. I mean, it just was so dumb. I was frustrated because I wanted to play Texas, but it's all right.
Is there
If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. All right.
Yeah.
Ohio State's the best.
Any other stuff on this game, or are we good?
Well, one thing to point out too is with Golden being out for an extensive amount of time, I think that really shook Texas for a good period. Because like once he came in, he made like what was a 35-yard catch, and it was like, okay, they're back in it. But with him being down for as long as he was, I think it was like 2 quarters. That really shook the Texas offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing before we move on. You know, we do this as a tradition.
Texas is back, folks.
Not this time. You're wrong.
We're back.
No, we got you.
When Texas wins tonight
No way.
against the mighty SEC,
No way.
Texas is back.
This one was invented by a writer.
They are still
It's been a long time since we've seen that.
It has. I'm glad.
It's been. I think it's been legit over a year since we've seen that. Probably since last year's semifinals.
The last time we played it was after they lost to Washington. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm guessing we'll let Ryan and his buddy, they'll go last, obviously, because they'll go on for 20 minutes, and I'm going to mute you guys because of that. My thoughts on this was at first it felt like Penn State was bully balling the crap out of Notre Dame. They had some very creative play designs, a lot of using Tyler Warren in creative ways. And Notre Dame's defense looked tired, looked slow, looked confused. There were times where they weren't even set when the ball was snapped. Penn State was using, hurry
up.
Yeah, they were using hurry up to their advantage, and I thought once it was 10-0, I was like, oh, okay, Penn State's gonna, but I think it's once they got out of that, because every team always has 15 to 20 plays that are scripted. Like you do these exact plays in a row to start the game. Once they got out of that, it became very uncreative offense, at least for about a quarter and a half, up until really in the fourth quarter is when they finally started being a little more creative on offense. And I'm also, so I think that also hurt Drew Aller, even before the pick, like he looked like he wasn't as assured of himself to make these throws and stuff. Like he's a junior, he should be making some of those throws. He missed a bunch. And then I'm just glad that Penn State did not take the lead on or did not win, at least off of that second PI call that because I know Ryan would have been pissed, even though I think it was a fine call because he didn't turn his head. But on the second pick, on the second one that would have been a second pick, I know Ryan would have been bitching up a storm, but technically he didn't turn his head, so it would have been fine call. But at least Penn State, it didn't keep that score there, else Ryan would have been. Already Ryan's been complaining about the refs with the Broncos today, so didn't need to deal with any more of that. So
my thoughts on the game were basically the same. Like, I mean, Penn State was bullying them. I knew Penn State was a good team, especially late in the season. They looked really good. They looked really good against us, and then they looked really good in the playoffs up until then. I mean, I think they won by over 20 points in both their playoff games before that. Now they weren't great opponents, but they still have looked very, very good. I just think it's funny, looking back, Ryan was saying that Notre Dame would destroy Penn State if they played. He was so looking forward to them playing, and then Penn State gave him an absolute dogfight till the very last second of the game. So I thought that was pretty funny. But considering that Penn State did what they did without completing a single pass to a wide receiver is very impressive. For one, I don't know how that's possible, but it was impressive. But I also think like Riley Leonard just he let them stay in that game because he made a couple plays that should have never happened. I mean, that the one interception where he was trying to fit it in, it was a cover 2 drop zone. He tried to fit it in the hole, and the linebacker was right there. It was right at his hands. I think he thinks his arm talent's a little bit better than it is, and he tried to really sling it in there.
Yeah,
he tried to really sling it in there, and it just wasn't going to be there. But if Riley Leonard doesn't make those mistakes, I think Notre Dame wins by a lot more than 3 points. I think they were a better team, but Penn State, I mean, they had a lot of fight, and it was a really, really fun game to watch. Hopefully for them, they can move on from Drew Aller after this season, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Guys,
I have one last thing that
he still looks like a freshman in high school. So
we unfortunately had an all-time announcer jinx on the drive. Aller threw the pick.
Yeah.
He's like, he literally said he's not going to. I think they said Aller's not going to put it into danger, and immediately throws a terrible.
No, he literally said Aller is known for not turning the ball over. That's what he's great at. He's only had, I think, 7 interceptions. Or no, he's only had 9 interceptions in the last 2 seasons. He's great at keeping the ball. As he finishes that sentence,
I don't even know what. I'm trying to figure out what the hell he saw to make that throw.
I will say though, Notre Dame's defense the last 2-3 years since Golden has been hired, if you look at all, like whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it's Aller, whether it's 9 times out of 10 quarterbacks have their worst games of the season against Notre Dame. Right. I will say that to give credit to Aller. I think he is a decent quarterback, but he didn't show it in that game.
I also think Gray. I mean, Gray made a ridiculous interception on that play. So like that's one of those plays where 9 times out of 10 it hits the turf, and then you play to the next. You get the next play. But Gray just made an incredible catch. So
Drew Aller is a trash can. Let's start there. He was outplayed. He was Riley Leonard actually looked like a decent quarterback for chunks of this game, and Drew Aller was a shell of himself, which is already not great. I thought that Penn State. I disagree with Lucas in that Notre Dame could run away with this. Granted, they had some opportunity, but I thought that if Penn State would have stuck to the run game, they had both of their starting running backs over 80 yards in this game. I think one of them had 19 carries. The other had like 15. They were getting like 5 yards a carry basically between them. And they were getting good chunks, especially Singleton, if I remember, was really running hard inside the goal line. But there is so I thought that they should have probably stuck with that a little more. I think that James Franklin, it was a fireable offense for him to go out there and throw the ball with under 40 seconds left in the game. Just take a knee, sir. Get to overtime.
I disagree there.
Where were they? Where was that? They were on like their.
Well, they ran it the first.
They were on their side of the field. They ran it, got like 14 yards, absolutely. But you were still like only at the 30 something. It wasn't like they had. It wasn't like
with 2 timeouts and 40 seconds left. That's like a whole.
Sure.
No. They had all 3 timeouts. They had all.
But I also think you have to understand the way that your quarterback is playing football tonight, and he wasn't playing 2-minute drive worthy football with a trip to the national championship on the line. I wouldn't have put the ball in Drew Aller's hand in that situation. It's just personally me. Sure, did they have like the requisite time and timeouts? Sure. I think for a good quarterback, I think for a quarterback that was playing halfway decent, absolutely, I would have tried to get, into field goal range, but they were not in that situation. And Drew Aller gave them no notion that he would be able to accomplish getting into field goal range with the requisite time. So I think he should have taken, or maybe you run it again. And if you get another 14 yards, heck, who knows what happens after that, right? But I just think that was not very smart of James Franklin. James Franklin reared his ugly head again in a situation where he wasn't necessarily the favorite. But although I think Ryan was saying by the time the game started, Penn State was a 1-point favorite or something like that. It was, again, though, a game I thought that with even or less money on Penn State, James Franklin isn't very good in terms of his win-loss record. We know his win-loss record against top 5 teams.
It's now one. His record, I think, is now 1 in either 15 or 1 in 16.
Yeah,
And
it's not great.
4 in 20
And this
against.
was a microcosm of the reason that people have a problem with James Franklin. These are all of the issues reared their head in this game.
I actually don't put this game directly on Franklin.
Well, I mean, it's not his fault that Aller threw the pick, right? Like he can't.
Well, hold on.
Well, here's the thing, though. That's not the first time he's done this. He did it, 3 games before that against Oregon.
Oregon, yes.
They were running all over us. They had an opportunity to, they had plenty of time in that game to go down there, score a touchdown, and tie it. Instead, they decided to throw a 50-50 ball, which most likely was an actual play call because they saw that our guy was manned up on the outside. So I'm sure they actually designed that to be a 50-50 ball, and it got picked off, and they lost.
No,
so this isn't the first time.
The first read on that pick was Warren, but it was covered. Drew Aller said in the press conference that he was just trying to throw it at the receiver's feet, and he got too far. He was throwing it away on that pick. That's what he said in the press conference.
Then you throw it 17 rows into the stands.
Well, Lucas, Joel Klatt broke it down today on his show, and he said that Drew Aller was not telling the truth when he said I was trying to throw it in the dirt. What he said he was doing was, he said if people are going to blame Drew Aller for that interception, but he said if you go back and you watch the play and you watch the Skycam footage, that's on Amari Evans. Amari Evans ran a half-ass route where he was running a 15-yard in. When you run a 15-yard in, you're supposed to sell to the corner that you're going to go for a go route.
Yeah.
Amari Evans half-assed the route, and then when he cut in, half-assed the cut in, and Christian Gray just sat on it immediately and then bit, and that's where he got the interception. So he said, yeah, Aller shouldn't have threw it, but it's more on Penn State's receivers in the play call in general than anything.
Ryan, I'm gonna say too, when going through this game, you get to go last. All right, you're gonna go longer than me. You're gonna go an hour.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Hey, I know you guys were sweating
once Ryan starts talking, I'm going to mute this so I don't have to listen to it.
I will say this. I agree with everything y'all said, but I will add this. A lot of what the three of y'all were saying was a lot of Notre Dame's mistakes and what Penn State did wrong. I'm going to sit here and give credit to trailing by 10 points. We don't win that game without Steve Angeli coming in, getting in field goal range.
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
Down a touchdown in a game where it feels like you're down more than a touchdown at half. And first drive coming out of the half, just down their throats.
I thought they should have kept him in.
Well, I'm glad they didn't. I was thinking this. I was thinking it. I asked my wife, I was like, should they keep him in? But we were talking and we were like, Riley, I would feel terrible if we lost the game and Riley, who's been our starter all year, didn't have the opportunity. So Steve Angeli's super talented. He just has the pocket presence of a chimpanzee. I mean, he doesn't even – I mean, he's terrible. He gets sacked 30 times a game. But I give credit to that. But I agree. First half, Notre Dame looked tired, right? I felt – that, and I was telling Ryan, it felt like our depth and the injuries were starting to catch up to us, right? We have a lot of injuries on the defensive line. 3 of the 4 starters in that game are backups. So it felt like our depth was starting to slowly diminish, slowly catch up to us. We were starting to get ran down our throat. Penn State had a great game plan running the ball. I agree with Phil that if Penn State keeps running the ball in that game, we probably don't win. I mean, it was a mistake to start throwing with Aller. I understand you want to start to get him in a rhythm, but they should have kept running with the running backs. But the second half, when you come out down their throats, I was like, there were so many moments where I'm sitting there like, I don't feel good. We're going to lose. We're going to win. We're going to lose. We're going to win. So it was a great game on that aspect. I completely disagree with something I was telling my wife during the game too. I was like, isn't it funny right now that Penn State has 2 picks, Notre Dame has 2, but both called back for penalties. The first one was an obvious holding call. The second one, I disagree with that flag, and most of college football Twitter disagrees with that flag being thrown, partially because, yes, he didn't turn his head around, but he was on his side, not really affecting Tyler Warren, and the ball was so badly underthrown that it shouldn't have been called. If it was an accurate ball, it should have been called, but the ball was so underthrown that it wasn't getting to Tyler Warren. So if we lost the game on that, I probably would be there with Ryan raging and throwing a fit, because I raged after that penalty because that was not a good call in that time of the game. But
And then Penn State's defense finally just has a blown coverage in the immediate ensuing drive.
that was crazy, right?
That was so bad.
When
that
they
wasn't a
up,
blown coverage. That
no,
wasn't
he
a
just
blown
broke his
coverage.
ankles. He just
when
broke his
they
ankles.
tied it, and then Riley threw a pick soon after, and there was about 4.5 minutes left in the game with us to tie the game. I was just like, our offense isn't really built for this, right? We're not built to go down the field and tie a game up. We're built on having a lead and running the ball down your throats. And when
you have
he,
the worst field goal kicker in college football.
yeah, until he played.
He's been really fucking good.
He had been the worst up until the playoffs.
Well, that's because of the injury, but
he was really good at South Carolina. But and then break the ankles play, we tie it up. We get the pick, kick the field goal. I mean, it was one of the top 3 probably Notre Dame games I've seen, just because of how big the moment was.
How fitting that even the field goal looks like it was going to shank to the right.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was going to get curved to the right.
Blowing. It was definitely a great game. I give credit to Penn State. I'm in the same boat as Ryan. I really wanted Penn State. I felt like in the playoffs, these 2 teams were the most similar, but I felt like we were the better team. And I also do agree that without those 2 mistakes, I think we could win by at least 10 or more, right? Those 2 mistakes are pretty costly. But it was a great game. You know, I am disappointed with the defensive line. That's something that I'm extremely nervous about in terms of Ohio State, right? But hopefully the 10 days of rest, maybe not having the flu, and maybe just getting ready for Ohio State, maybe they'll come out better because it's the Natty. But I agree with, I believe Phil said it too, that I think all y'all said it, that the defensive line just looked really tired in stopping the run. So that was my biggest takeaway from the game. And I just hope that I want to give credit to Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman coming out of the half and just playing the game like it was a tied game, or it really felt like in the first half that Penn State was up by more than a touchdown. I mean, I think I saw stats that when Penn State was up 10-0, they outdid Notre Dame in everything. But since they were up 10-0 in almost every major stat category, Notre Dame crushed them. So Marcus Freeman had to fire them up, and they did their job. But give credit to Notre Dame too. I know, coaching, you can blame Franklin, you can blame the mistake for Aller or this and that, but to be down in a playoff game and coming back and and winning like that. It's remarkable.
Yeah, so obviously when I was watching this game, I was sweating the entire thing, especially when you go down 10-0. Anything that that was going on, it didn't go our way. Obviously, they were leaning on us. To me, it looked like Notre Dame. To me, it looked like a team in Penn State that had got to cakewalk their way through the first 2 rounds of the playoff, playing basically 2 G5 teams against a team that had just played a physically demanding game 7 days prior with 2 days less rest, by the way, because of the postponement, and Penn State played 2 days before Notre Dame against Georgia. And I think Notre Dame came out a lot like that. Also having the flu had something to do with that as well. But overall, like I think that we played our C- game and we still won. We lost the turnover margin. We still won. We were down 10-0 at half, or 10-3 at halftime. Still won. To me, this team just has resilience that former Notre Dame teams that have been in the playoff or have been, in this spotlight have folded under, and they didn't. And that speaks volumes to Marcus Freeman. If you would have told me going into this game that Penn State, who is supposed to be the better passing team, would have less passing yards than Notre Dame by quite a bit, would have told you're fucking nuts, right? If you would have told me that Penn State would have double as many rushing yards as Notre Dame when Notre Dame's a better rush team, would have told you you're crazy. The fact that we counteracted all that and we still won, the 2 Riley turnovers that were bad. I was in Sean's shoes when we threw that pick and they scored, which, by the way, again, that PI was not PI. I don't get this rule where just because you're not turned around, it's automatically got to be PI when there's minimal contact. Like, he brushed up against him, like barely touched him. He breathed on him. And it's PI, especially when the ball is severely underthrown. That ball was going to be intercepted anyway. Warren had no way to make a play on that ball with the minimal contact that Schuler made whatsoever. Anyway, I'm glad that we came back from that.
Freeman cussed out the refs. Freeman cussed them out.
Oh,
he was like,
he saw the smile he gave him. He's like, you. But no, like that Jaden Greathouse play where he put 2 DBs on their ass. Beautiful. He made that. Was that who? Or Lucas? Who's the Penn State safety? The one that's really good. Reed.
I don't know.
He made
I don't pay
him.
attention to those guys. Those guys are shit on the bottom of our shoe. Ain't that right, Phil?
Jaden Greathouse crossed that man, took his ankles, and let him sit on the ground and pick up some daffodils. Yep. That's what he was doing. But yeah, man, it was a great game. At halftime, we had our halftime space, and I was crashing out with all the other Notre Dame fans. Like, we got people are like, "Man, this fucking game's over." Like,
my uncle at the game said that everyone that he went to the game, he said everyone there at the game, completely different than social media. Everyone on social media was like crashing out, like Ryan said, but he said everyone at the game, there was never like a moment where they felt like it wasn't in a game for them. So, I mean, that's a good thing to hear. Ryan, I have to go. Hey, I'll be at the national championship.
I'll be there too. I'll be there too.
Go
Have
Irish,
fun, man.
Thank you.
Be safe.
But one final thing, I think I agree with what Lucas said. If we don't make the mistake, Notre Dame wins this game pretty comfortably. But yeah, I mean, the way we won it, the way this team's, changed the narrative around Notre Dame as a program the last 36 years since we won our last championship. They're beating the narrative. And, especially after losing to NIU, you get a chance to completely shut up every single Notre Dame hater out there and win a national championship, and there's nothing you can say. And again, that's all credit to Marcus Freeman. He's not an up-and-coming coach anymore. he's a star in the coaching scene in college football now.
Okay.
Well,
I guess
okay, we're gonna
Go ahead, Lucas. What you're gonna say, and then we'll.
Well, I just figured we just go right into the national championship game and talk about it a little bit. I mean, who gives a fuck about fucking giraffe neck? No disrespect. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be an incredible game. I think it's gonna be really fun to watch. I think it's hilarious that the two biggest upsets in college football this year were Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and NIU, and they're both playing in the Natty now.
pretty much.
That's pretty incredible.
And I saw someone was pissed that it was like,
someone wrote a tweet
about that this is what you wanted, people. Two teams that have lost. I'm like,
this is what you wanted, the 12-team playoff.
That's a good thing because now you can just, and they're like, people are
I
saying,
do think it's cool that we're seeing an 8 versus 7 in the Natty, something that's never happened in college football history. I think it's really, really special that we're seeing something like that. Whether you really think these teams are ranked number 8, number 7, probably not. I would say closer to 4 and 5.
Wasn't that what Ohio State was? Was Ohio State was actually like 4? Notre Dame was like 5.
So in the normal rankings, Notre Dame is 6 and Ohio State's 7.
Yeah.
Or
Still,
5 and 6. My bad.
5 and 6. So I think it's probably closer to 4 and 5, or maybe even 3 and 4. But I do think this is going to be a really special game. It's going to be fun to watch. I am curious, and I wanted to ask our boy this as well. But Ryan, how do you think Notre Dame is going to be able to make changes on their interior in their front 7 when they're facing two running backs of the same caliber, if not better, than Singleton and Katron Allen this week? Because 2 weeks in a row now, they're facing off against a very, very good duo at the running back position, and you cannot give up 280 yards rushing to Ohio State because they will beat you by 50 if you do that. So how do you think they make the change?
I think obviously you're going to have Xavier Watson, Don Schuler. One of the two is going to have to play closer to the line of scrimmage than maybe you'd like, especially with Ibuka and Smith. But I think that what you're going to see with Al Golden, who arguably is the best DC in the country, I think I don't know exactly what he's going to do. I just know that he's going to scheme up some stuff that's going to, with the intention of, trying to confuse the Ohio State offensive line and Will Howard. Because you notice when we did against Penn State, what we did against Georgia a lot is we would line up a certain way, and we did a lot of pre-snap movement, and we confused both of those teams' offensive lines by having the inside go outside go inside, and we do a lot of stunting. So I think that's what you're going to have to do. I don't know if you're going to stop Judkins and Henderson, but I think that it's pick your poison with Ohio State. Would you rather Henderson and Judkins run on you, or would you rather Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka kill you deep? I personally think Notre Dame would rather keep stuff in front of them and allow Ohio State to run the ball and just trust that we're going to get a stop and instead of letting their weapons outside beat us. Because I think eventually Ohio State's going to get tired of just running the ball, and they're going to want to test this deep. They're going to want to try Jeremiah Smith. They're going to want to try to, hit Ibuka. And I think that's where Notre Dame can maybe get some advantage if they can get, with our corners being the best in man coverage in the nation. I think that's where maybe you can get like a Will Howard interception, kind of like you talked about earlier, where it's a 50-50 ball, and say Watts goes up there and just gets an interception. So it's going to be tough, man. And Ohio State's here for a reason because that offense is so damn difficult to scheme against.
Yeah, I think it'd be a mistake to play man defense against Ohio State. I mean, I get you're probably going to have to mix it in, you know what I mean, just to not be predictable. But Jeremiah Smith is actually as good as advertised. Um, and I'm with you. I think if you're gonna have to give up one thing, it probably would be allowing them to try to beat you on the ground, and then tightening up in the red zone. I think that's the way to do it. Um, but we'll see what happens. I gotta give both of these teams their credit because I was one of those teams that certainly wrote off Notre Dame after the NIU loss, but to that same uh, token, about 3 games after that, I was like, "Yo, this team is the closest thing to Michigan's 2023 team in terms of the way they run the ball, play defense." And I had Ryan on the show not too long ago, and I was saying that same thing. I actually picked Notre Dame at the start of the playoffs to make the championship game. Now, granted, last week I did switch up because I thought Penn State would win, but that's neither here nor there. And then Ohio State. I mean, after we beat them last game of the regular season, you know, they were able to kind of find themselves, get insular, find themselves, and use that as well as all the noise in the media about their coach being fired possibly and all of this stuff. And it seems like they've kind of rallied around that the same way. And I hate to keep referring to Michigan 2020 or 2024 or 3 Michigan, but the same way that they kind of rallied around the noise about Connor Stallions, even after, he was gone and stuff like that. We kind of just use that as fuel. But both of these teams are deserving of being here, and it pains me to say it about either one of them. Um, but just being honest, I like the matchup. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see Notre Dame try to slow down this passing attack and all of it, and just Ohio State period. And it's also going to be interesting to see how Ohio State reacts if they're not getting what they want, right? Because they have a tendency to panic in tight games as well.
Yeah, the man coverage thing is interesting, and you and Lucas make great points about it. I've had people in spaces ever since we knew this matchup was going to happen. Well, Notre Dame can't run man against Ohio State. You're going to get killed. You got to run zone, and you got to do this. Like we run man 90% of our snaps. It's who we are. It's our identity. It's what we're good at, and it's what our corners are best at. Like we leave on our corners on islands all the time. And I think that you can play that way 90% of the snaps against Ohio State and be successful? No. Do I think they're going to limit that? Yeah. But my thing is you can't go away from what got you here, because you've done this all year. You did it against, some excellent receiver cores that obviously are not Ohio State. But you did it against Zachariah Branch. You did it against Ja'Cory Brooks and Colin Lacey. You did it against those types of guys. So obviously it's a different level. But I just don't think you can completely go from telling your teammate, we trust you all year. Christian Gray, we trust you to lock up your assignment and be on an island. Leonard Moore, we trust you to be on an assignment. And then just be like, well, we're playing Ohio State. We don't trust you anymore. Play zone every single snap. I just not who you are. And actually Notre Dame is terrible. Their defense is worse when they're forced to be in zone because that's just not how they're built. They're not built to be a zone team. They're built to be a man-to-man, your guy versus my guy type of team. And it usually works out. So I'm excited to see the Leonard Moore versus Jeremiah Smith matchup. It's a freshman All-American DB versus a freshman All-American receiver, best on best. So I think it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. I think these are obviously the two best teams in the nation. And I think it's going to come down to the wire. And again, like Fisherman said in the comments, your strength versus my strength. Let's see who is better because something's got to give.
Okay. So what is our final pick?
I do want to say one thing.
Okay.
I actually do kind of disagree with you guys. I think the way you stop Ohio State is by stopping the run. You saw it in the Michigan game and Oregon game. Oregon gave up 121 yards of rushing and won that game. Michigan, I think, only gave up like maybe 100 or under 100 yards rushing, or it was just at 100 yards rushing, and they won that game. Most of their other games that they play, they run for like 150 to 200, even more than that. I think the way you beat those guys is stopping their run game, make them throw, especially if you're Notre Dame with extremely good defensive backs. You make them throw the football and then hope that your D-line gets there or Will Howard makes a mistake. You have to stop the run, because if Ohio State starts running the ball on you and they start doing it well, they're not going to stop, and they're going to race to a national championship win.
Really quick, just to speak on that. I actually think that Ohio State passes the ball to run the ball. Unlike other teams, most teams run the ball to try to open up the pass. Ohio State is able to run because of the threat of their pass, in my opinion. And I think they've shown that, like, even against Oregon, right? It was early on, it was that big pass play to JJ that broke, for the touchdown. And now you have to worry about that. And they're spreading you out too. And then now they're running lanes for Travion Henderson, for Quinshawn Judkins. So I think it is imperative to be able to contain that pass game, because again, you want to bend and not break to the run game. If they kill you with the run game, because they can, like you pointed out, Travion Henderson is dangerous. He went for 75 yards on the screen pass in this past game. And it seemed like every other play he was racing Oregon players to the end zone, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I get it, but I also think that was set up because of what they were able to do in the pass game and what they can do in the pass game.
And one more thing I want to point out too is with the man stuff. Like, I think you'll see Notre Dame run a lot more cover 2 man. Typically, we run like a cover 1 robber type style defense. So I think you'll see that, where we'll have Watts kind of be, kind of shading over the top of wherever JJ's lined up. That way you kind of have some protection in case more were to get beat. Again, like you said, that if we do that, Phil, then that takes a Don Schuler or Watts out of the box, and then that's one less guy to defend the run. So it's that, again, that's why Ohio State is here. It is pick your poison. How do you want to be beat? It's going to be a great game, man. I think it's going to be an all-time classic.
Yep.
Every time we say that, that means it's just going to be a blowout by one of the other teams.
Hey, we were told by Ohio State fans the other day that we're the next TCU. So I mean,
okay.
Damn it.
Okay. Final predictions. Who you got? Let's go, Lucas. Let's start with you first. Who you got?
I think I'm gonna go final score 38-21 Buckeyes.
Phil, I get the feeling you want the Meteor to win.
I do. But this outcome sucked for me as a fan of Michigan, but it's an easy choice for me if I'm having to pick between these two. I would rather Notre Dame win than Ohio State. That said, being a fan and analyzing the game is different. So
your heart wants Notre Dame, but your head's saying Ohio State.
Yeah, it is sort of that thing. So I'll give 2 possible scores. One score, 23-17 Notre Dame. Another score, 41-20 Ohio State.
Wow.
Damn it.
So for me, Ryan, of course, will be at this game, so he'll go last. For me, I do think Ohio State's offense is just giving me too much. I think it'll be 31. I think it'll be 31-24. But I think that's going to be something where it's going to be like a 31-17, and Notre Dame gets a garbage time touchdown to make the score closer than it actually is.
That's respectable.
So, I said earlier, I think this game plays a lot like it did last year. Last year's score was 17-14. I'm going 21-17 Notre Dame. They get a touchdown that they didn't get last year, and I think they win it in revenge style on one of the last plays of the game to beat Ohio State for the national championship.
Imagine if it's the exact same scenario and Notre Dame or Ohio State wins at the gun again.
Or imagine Marcus Freeman puts 11 players on the field and they get
12.
They get
12 players on the field.
Right.
Put 12 players on the field and they don't call it.
Right.
Oh,
we never hear. That would be poetic, by the way. If Marcus Freeman on the last play of the game puts 12 players on the field, they get the stop, it's not called. Ohio State fans might burn something down.
No, actually, Phil, if Notre Dame beats Ohio State in general for the national championship, Ohio State fans will burn shit down.
Right.
Like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
So, Ryan, you'll be at the game. Gentlemen, the rest of us, Phil and Lucas, do you want to try and do like a live reaction to
What
the
day
game?
is it?
It'll be
Monday.
It's Monday.
not this Monday, but next Monday.
So Monday, I'll be down for that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll do that. We'll do like a live reaction and stuff, watching it. Of course, last time I'm not sure if we did last year's championship game, but we did the TCU Georgia game, and we were just like stopped caring about 5 minutes in because it was already a blowout at that point. We were just talking.
We did do last year's, and I remember Phil would not join us because he was in his.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He was he was locked in.
Yeah.
So Phil can join us this time.
But we will be doing a live game reaction. If I can. I don't know how Wi-Fi is in the stadium. If we're winning,
hop in.
I'll hop in. If we're fucking losing, I'll hop in the post game after I get home and I had a few drinks. All right.
So you'll hop in 2 weeks after the game because because you can't hop it because you're not going to be hopping in from the stadium from the hotel.
I'll take a Lucas.
Go back to the hotel.
I'll
and
be
you'll
gone.
your ass off.
I needed to take my time and
I get
really
it.
reflect and understand that it just wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't a fair fight. Ohio State got a tune-up game before they played us. It wasn't fair. And they should have thrown like fucking Michigan in front of us before that game so we could, get a little tune-up game
Use
beforehand.
the loss as motivation.
You don't want to see second half Michigan. Second half of the season,
Michigan is now just like a roadblock just to that you're going to throw in front of teams to force them to lose, piss them off, and they go on a gigantic run.
We also could have threw NIU in there for Lucas so he could get another tune-up game.
There you go. I also want to point out really quickly that we have to look at Indiana completely different now. Their only two losses of the season came to Penn State and Ohio State.
And Notre Dame.
I'm sorry, Notre Dame and Ohio State. And both of those teams are playing for the national championship.
They won the narrative.
I don't look at them different at all. I think Penn State would have beat the hell out of them. I think Oregon would have beat the hell out of them. I think Arizona State would have beat the hell out of them.
Damn it!
Would Illinois beat them?
What about Boise?
Did you see Did you see the news that the Indiana quarterback had been playing all year with like a torn ACL or something?
Yeah, I did see that.
Damn, really?
Yeah. He had a torn ACL.
Sure, that's not Coach Signetti coming out with an excuse.
No, it was torn. It was torn, but it was like I think it was a hairline tear, so where it wasn't fully torn, and he was.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, can you even?
The same thing happened. So the same thing happened to me in high school. I tore my labrum, but it was only a little bit. And they basically tell you like you can get the surgery, but it's going to put you out for the season, or you can just hope it heals. And I think that's basically the same thing that kid did.
Okay. Well, that should be it. We'll be back next Monday for the championship live reaction. Ryan will be at the game, so he'll be drunk in happy drunk or sad drunk after the game. So for Lucas, for Phil, for Ryan, I'm Connor. This has been the Week Zero Podcast. We will see you guys later.